Welcome back to another episode of the Life Behind the Bars podcast and show, hip hop's most intelligent, most insightful show out there. Dr. Melvin Armstrong Jr. in the place to be, as we always do around this time. Hip hop's newest doctor. And we have an illustrious, amazing brother that's coming through today. Risky Forever. You know his work, even if you don't know the name. I know that you know. We know you know his work. So I'm excited about that. But my riff for this week is about the generation gap. So I was recently rereading an article that was in the New York Times, and it was basically talking about the generation gap that's existing in hip-hop culture today between basically what they term dad rap versus the emo rappers out there today. Or that type of generation gap. And as I was at a cigar shop, smoking a cigar, doing what I do, like to drink, sip some of those dang things, you know how we do it. I was struck by a conversation that precipitated because me and a couple of folks got into a conversation about the value of hip-hop, or the value of like modern day hip-hop producers versus like the jazz generation and other things like that. And what occurred to me was the very much disconnect between these communities. So I would argue that the jazz generation of older folks in their 50s and their 60s who at one time were ridiculed or seen as outsiders, who are now kind of in the social main, in some ways do not have the connection with the hip-hop generation that I think they should. And so that's what I wanted to talk to you about a little bit, of bridging the gaps, because what I do think that both of these generations have in common is that they have a lot to teach each other. They have a lot that can speak to each other. One of the things, and this is not necessarily the jazz and hip-hop generations, I remember being a youngster and like many of us having Hammer Mania, and Hammer came on. And I remember my dad was like, boy, turn that off. And I was like, Pops, you don't know nothing about this MC Hammer. You don't know nothing about You Can't Touch This, Dad. You ain't never heard this before. He's like, boy, I have heard that shit. And it's called Rick James Super Freak. And he proceeded to put it on. And I was like, that's where Hammer got that from? He was like, yes, boy, Hammer want to be Rick James. But in that conversation, what persisted, that was one of the most meaningful conversations that me and my father have actually had about anything. And we gained a way to talk. Another linkage between older generations and newer generations is I remember rapping the words to Kool Moe Dee's God Made Me Funky as a youngster. And my mom was like, son, turn that devil music off, And I was like, Mama, why you say it's like that? And she's like, son, you got to realize God ain't made nobody funky. And I was like, well, Mama, do you know what funky means? And she was like, well, I really don't. And so then we began to talk about what Kool Moe Dee meant when he said that God made him funky. That is to say, fresh, unique, all these particular things. And my mom was like, oh, well, that's actually not as bad as I thought. And I was like, yeah. And so that there was a way to bridge the gap. So my riff for this week is all about the ways that we can, from these generations, whether that's the jazz, the blues generation, hip-hop generation, whether that's if you love 1990s hip-hop and you think mumble rap and all this stuff today is whack as hell, because some of it is whack as hell. But let's still put some of that stuff to the side and able to bridge those gaps. So that's my riff for this week. So pleased to welcome to a Life Behind the Bars podcast and show the artist Risky Forever. You know this brother's work from all of his work in Death Row. I think what it is, Risky, is that every album, with the exception of Dog Food and Doggy Style, you had at least a hand in.
Yes.
And you were the primary cover artist for two of my favorite Death Row albums, Machiavelli, 7 Day Theory, and Dash Dillinger's
Retaliation, Revenge, and Get Back. Yeah.
Which has one of my favorite hip-hop cuts of all time. It might sound crazy. Okay. Remember the song with Too Short? Yeah. It might sound crazy, but I'm still in love with you.
Yeah. I helped Dash pick that single out, too, for to be one of his singles.
Okay, so we're gonna chop it up. So let's get up into it, man.
Okay.
Risky, my man, grew up in the CPT. We're going to get into that a little bit later. But what I want to first start off is to you, is you have a book called Art is Your Life.
Yes.
But it's not only the title of your book, fam. Talk to me about why art is so important to you personally, and why should it be important to our community?
I mean, art is everywhere. I mean, when you look at a building, that's basically art. You know, somebody had to design that.
Right.
So I feel like art is important all around us, not just for the creativity part, but for also just for the modern part, for how we live. Because like I said, it takes an artist to be able to sit down and be able to design half of these buildings in these homes that we live in. But I mean, art was important to me growing up. It was a getaway. It was something that I learned from my aunt. My aunt used to babysit me a lot, and she used to be an artist, and I used to sit on her lap and I used to watch her draw. And from sitting there watching my aunt draw, I decided that I wanted to be an artist when I grew up.
Okay. My man, CPT Pride, you were born and raised in CPT. Talk to me about that.
I mean, I wasn't born and raised in Compton. I was born in Torrance, California, but I was
Okay.
raised a lot in Compton. I mean, Compton is what it was. I mean, it's a little bit more peaceful than it was back in the day, but I mean, it still has its rowdy parts. But I feel like it was at the height of its rowdiness, like when I was growing up. You know, it was like, it was just so much gang violence. I mean, shootouts. I mean, gangs. It was drive-bys. I mean, it was drugs. I mean, it was everything. It was everything that people, really see in these movies. But I feel like it was just a 10. It's multiplied by 10. I mean, if you really live there.
Okay. So let me ask you this, though, Risky. One of the things I like on your website and in interviews that I've seen with you before, and one of the reasons I wanted to have you here, you made a statement is that you said art aesthetics is all around us. You said even the way somebody can have a freshly hair full of braids and it's done in design.
Into a design. Yeah.
So talk to me about that, man. But talk to us, like, where do you see in black culture, where do you see more of the arts? Where do you see the aesthetics? Where do you see this stylization coming?
I mean, it's hard to say where I see it coming right now, because I mean, I see just by me just getting further into the art career now. Like when I grew up, it wasn't really it wasn't street art when I was growing up. Now street art is like a big phenomenon. Like I like to tell people, I was doing street art before it was popular. You know what I mean? Before it was it was street art before it was street art.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I really it's hard for me to really say where I see it going, because there's so many different people with so many different styles of artwork. You know what I mean? They have different bases. You know, a lot of people like to put politics in their art. I mean, it's really going to I can't really even describe where I see it going. It's just depending on where that artist is taking it to.
Okay.
That where they're going with it.
Okay. Well, let me ask you about Miss Margaret Ferris. Who is she?
Marta Ferris.
Yeah, Marta Ferris. Who is she? And why was she influential?
Marta Ferris, she was my high school teacher. That was the first, besides my aunt teaching me art, Marta was the first person to really give me school teaching, you know what I mean? To take my street art into fine art. She was the person that really sat down with me, really educated me on how art was, how, the mathematics of a face, 5 eyes across your face, 5 eyes up and down, you know what I mean? To be able to, get the mathematics of a face. She was that person that was taking me to that next level with it. She really honed me.
So it sounds like she was very influential to you.
Oh, she was.
Can you go back into that space? I think, sometimes we forget where we came from. Go back into that space. What did that mean to you looking back on it now?
I mean, sometimes I get mad at her because I wish she would have kicked me out of her class, because you know what I mean. That was kind of one of the reasons why I really didn't graduate from high school, because I spent so much time in art. I mean, when I go back, I just think about I was so into art. I had people paying me to do they class assignments to get grades. You know what I mean? So
okay,
just growing up back then, it was really a big thing to me, because I mean, I had my own little art crew. I was doing clothes, airbrushing. I mean, I was getting money off of that, too, in high school. So I wasn't having to come home and ask my mom and dad, can I get lunch money, because I was already getting money at school.
Okay. How does art make you feel, man? When you talked about before that art was your outlet, and that in some ways art almost, it seems was a lifesaver to you. So tell me, how does when you do, like when you first did like the 7-day theory, how do you feel when you complete a piece?
I mean, I feel accomplished. I feel like, you know, it's historic. Like back then, I really didn't have all of those feelings. Then I just felt like, wow, you know what I mean? I'm doing something on a whole entirely different level. Just I'm no longer just like doing that airbrush T-shirt that's just going to be seen on that Friday night at that football game. Now I'm doing something that the whole world is about to see. And it's like when you sitting inside the box, you really don't really grasp that concept.
Right.
But it's like the years.
You too close to it.
I was too close to it. So once the years started passing and I really saw like how many people were like really like influenced by the artwork that I did, it really kind of like let me know that this really had took me and changed my life. Like, you know, doing this is really, and I can really like take care of myself and really like.
So man,
pay
tell
my bills.
folks how you got introduced to and it started with Death Row, because I think it's a lesson in like perseverance. I've heard you talk about this before, but tell the folks who've never heard you or who don't know who you are, how did you get linked up to Death Row to become you? And I think it was Brother Hendog were the two official Death Row artists. How did you get linked up with Death Row Records?
I mean, back in the day, I used to see Suge and the homies driving up and down the street in lowriders, you know what I mean? And it wasn't until like I really started looking at like those album covers. I think when I saw Doggy Style, I was like, wow, they using artwork. And then it was like when the Dog Food album came out, I seen artwork.
Right.
So by Death Row being so close to me, I kept telling myself like, man, I got to be a part of it. Some type of way I got to figure it out. And it wasn't until like I end up, you know, meeting Suge and Suge introduced me to Tupac that I was able to like take it to that next level, because it was like right after I met Tupac, then I was meeting Hendog, and then I started going to work on, you know, working on the insert for the All Eyes on Me album.
What was that like though, man? Because I've heard you tell the stories, and I know you do a lot of mentorship as well as we all do here. But it's a story in like perseverance, like, because you said that you waited for him, I think, for a long time when y'all initially met. So tell us a little bit about that story and what was Suge like?
I mean, this
because
day,
you just didn't rush him.
Yeah, this day was like crazy because I happened to be running the errand, because at this time I was working for an airbrush store from my boy Clifford Morris. He had an airbrush shop called Radical Air Designs. You know, we were in the Compton Swap Meet, but then he had moved across the street because he felt like we didn't have as much say-so into what we did. Like if we wanted to work late, we couldn't work late at the Compton Swap Meet. We had to be out at a certain time. So by him opening up this store, we were able to like paint all night if we wanted to.
Right.
But it was just that day, I think it was on a Saturday, and Cliff had wanted me to run an errand, so I was leaving to go to Orange County to the airbrush store. It was called Coast Airbrush at the time. And I saw a car carrier with a lot of lowriders on it. And I kept wondering like what's going on. I was wondering like, what is that car carrier there for? Like what they getting ready to do over here? And somebody kept telling me they were going to do a video, but I didn't have a clue that it was going to be Death Row doing the video over there. So I end up leaving, going to the art store. I end up coming back, and when I came back, it was like groves of people, and the car carrier was empty, and I started seeing all of these lowriders on the streets.
Right.
And I started seeing all of these camera crews and stuff, so I was like asking the homies, like, what's going on? And they were telling me, like, you know, Tupac is over there shooting a video for California Love. So I went upstairs, dropped off everything to my boy Cliff that I had picked up, and I took off across the street, and I started looking. So I saw Suge. And when I saw Suge, like Suge had already had an idea who I was, because people was like taking him like pictures of my artwork, showing him stuff that I did around the neighborhood. And I saw him. So I kept saying to myself, like, I'm going to try to holler at him, you know what I mean? But it was like so many people that were trying to holler at him that I had said to myself, like, if I try to go talk to him right now, he basically gonna give me only a certain amount of time to talk to him before he got to talk to the next person. So it's gonna be like a kind of rush job to be able to talk to me so he can be able to talk to the next person. So I said to myself, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wait until he talked to everybody. You know what I mean? And I end up standing there. It was like maybe about an hour to maybe about an hour and 30 minutes, and I caught him talking to the last person. And I walked up to him and I was like, hey Suge, how you doing? I'm risky, you know what I mean? I'm an artist, you know. People told me you saw my work, you know. I wanted to talk to you about trying to do something, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I heard about you. I seen some of your work." He asked me, he said, "Do you have your same book that I saw?" It was like a portfolio that I had that was going around. People were looking at it, and I was like, "Oh, I was slipping that day." I was like, "Nah, I don't got it," because I really wasn't expecting that when I went over there, so I didn't have it with me. So he was like, "Do you have your book?" And I was like, "No." I said, "But can you give me a minute? I'll go get it real fast." And he was like, "Go get your book and come back." And I was like, "Man, you ain't going nowhere." I was basically like begging him, like, "You ain't going nowhere." You know what
so
I mean?
You thought he was about to send you off.
Yeah. And he was like, "No, homie, I'm gonna be right here waiting for you." You know what I mean? So when you get your book, come right back to me. So I took off running across the street. I grabbed my portfolio, and when I came back, he was right there. And I walked up to him, and he started thumbing through it. And he told me to go with him. So I ended up walking with him, you know what I mean, to like one side of the parking lot. There was a white van there, and he tapped on the door. And when they opened the door, Tupac was inside. So he told Tupac, "Come out. I want you to check out some of the little homie artwork." You know what I mean? He from the neighborhood. I want you to look at some of his artwork. You know what I mean? See if there's something we could do. So Tupac got out. He started looking at my portfolio. He started liking some of the stuff he saw. And then from there, he was just like start hollering out all types of projects he wanted me to work on. The first project he wanted me to work on was for America's Most Wanted, the video with him and Snoop. But it didn't happen that way. Like maybe like 2 weeks later, like I said, I had met Hen Dog. Hen Dog was like doing some of the artwork at that time. He came to meet me, and I ended up working on the airbrush work for All Eyes on Me for the insert of the album.
Yeah, I remember the insert that you did for All Eyes on Me, man. But like, let's get into this, fam. Like you're an artist. And it's just so many things that, you know, I want to ask you. But one of the first things I want to ask you, like you've created that album cover for the 7 Day Theory because of like what happened when it came out, the controversy, all of the stuff surrounding it, just like with those different types of stuff. What does it feel like to create something that's that iconic? Like literally, you could make an argument that you probably have the most memorable album cover in hip hop history that you did.
I mean, right now it kind of feel like, to just be honest, it kind of feel like, yeah, I did that. You know what I'm saying? But I don't feel like I really got what I deserve.
In what respect?
I feel like I'm not able to do the stuff that I should be able to do with my artwork. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's in a sense that I feel like it's kind of a hindrance to me because I feel like that part of me is kind of taken away from me that time. It's like I can still look back and say, yeah, I did that, but it really don't count the way that it should count. You know what I mean?
Right, I got you.
So I feel like it's a blessing and it's a curse at the same time. And then what happened behind, me giving it to him, you know what I mean, the next day he got shot. I really feel like, you know what I mean? I feel crazy about that all the time.
Do you want to tell the story? Because like I think that you really were about to, like, because everything from Death Row was blowing. Everybody from Death Row was blowing. And you basically, like you said, all but 2 of the albums you had something to do with, and you have this album cover for the most iconic or one of the biggest albums in hip hop history. Tell me a little bit about, I also wanted to ask you about this because like in terms of the design that you did for 7 Day Theory, the cities on there, whose idea was that and all this stuff? Because I was looking, because you know me being from Illinois, myself and Joe, I was happy that Chicago was right at the top of the cross. You know what I'm saying? I was happy about that. You know, Chicago and Detroit was up there, but then you had Oakland, then you had like East Orange, New Jersey, all of that stuff all over the place. How did you come up with that stuff, like the actual detail for the cross?
I mean, all of that was Pac idea. You know what I mean? I was just a vessel.
Okay.
You feel me? I sat down with him. He explained to me everything that he wanted me to do. And I just went to work on it, and I just started creating it. You know what I mean? And once I got it done, he was just mesmerized that I was able to create what he had really like thought about in his head.
Right, because you brought it to life.
I brought it to life. And like I said, everything was his idea. I can't really take credit for none of that. Only thing I could really take credit for is creating it. But the whole concept was Pac's idea.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this as an artist, man. What do you think the art's effect or the effect that you would like art to have on like black culture, hip hop culture, all that other stuff? Because it seems to me that you seem conflicted a little bit about that.
I mean, I just feel conflicted about it because, I mean, just maybe the last 4 years, like when I was really doing my artwork and I really was at the pinnacle of my career, I say this a lot in a lot of interviews. Back then, we didn't have Instagram.
Right.
We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have Twitter and all of these things to be able to like really show and promote, you know what I mean, what we're doing. And I feel like, you know, a lot of people know my work, but a lot of people don't know who I am. And it's like, I'm still like trying to prove to people this day who I am and what I've done. You know what I mean? And it's a lot of artists that that are out here that are doing their things. And it's like, it wasn't until like I saw the story about Jean-Michel Basquiat and how he came from the streets and how he captivated the art world and how he was making so much money. And I felt really drawn to his story because I was basically coming from the same thing, you know what I mean? But it just made me feel like I needed to up my game. At that time, I was just airbrushing.
Okay.
You know, I was looking at acrylics and oils and I was throwing it in the trash. You know what I mean? Like, I can't work with this. You know what I mean?
Because it wasn't a medium that
it wasn't the medium that I was used to using. And once I saw his story, I started changing my medium up, like using acrylics. You know, I'm trying to mess around with oils, mixing them with airbrush, trying to do this, trying to do that. So I could be able to get to that type of success rate to where like I can sell my art for thousands of dollars opposed to I'm selling a $20 airbrush t-shirt or doing some $100 shoes. You know, I wanted to uplift my game. But it's like the art world is like, I feel like it's a lot of prejudice there too. You know what I mean? Because you have people that are exposed heavily into the art world. And it's like if you try to get around those people and try to mix up, try to sit down, try to like politic with them, talk and find out how everything is, man, they want to hold the information back from you. You know what I mean? I feel like it's a lot of people, you know, that I've been around so far as like artists that I've introduced myself and oh yeah, you cool. Take my number. Let's do this. Let's do that. And once I get, you know, to the point to where I start calling them, then it's like a far-fetched thing. It's like, you know what I mean? We can't do none of the shit y'all was talking about. You know what I mean? We ain't hooking up. We ain't collabing. We ain't doing none of that. You know what I mean? Because it's like, they can't really say that I don't have skills. I feel like a lot of people are afraid of what I can possibly take from them, but I'm not trying to take nothing from nobody. I'm out here trying to grow. You know what I mean?
Right.
I feel like anytime you plant a seed or you water somebody and you help them grow, that's only helping your character out and who you are and adding something to you.
That's right.
And I haven't ran into that right person, you know what I mean, to really feel like, you know what I mean, I can really like give you the insight, brother. You know what I mean?
I got you. Well, let me ask you this though, fam. In terms of like your name, I know you used to grow by and you grew up Risky. Tell us about like your name. Your stage name is almost like a hip hop stage name, Risky Forever. What's the?
I was doing like when I started off at Death Row, I was just calling myself Risky. You know what I mean? And it wasn't until I started getting up in age and I started looking at some of the stuff that I did. You know what I mean? It's not. There are not really too many artists that are super successful. You know what I mean? That are still here. You feel me? And I feel like I'm still here. I feel like I have work that people are gonna know forever. Like these albums are like in hip hop history. You know what I mean?
No doubt, without question.
30, 40 years from now, when they pull up that Death Row, when they pull up the Death Row situation, my work is gonna be there representing that.
Right.
So I feel like, you know what I mean, that's gonna go on forever. So I started adding forever to my name.
Okay.
And just started calling myself Risky Forever.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this something, man, because you've talked about this a little bit, but I want to get into it because I've seen some stuff to do, like when you do the body art. Dope detail. Like I think it was the one thing that it was you and the makeup artist. Y'all was walking down Compton Boulevard and all the different other stuff, and you had the body artist. She had like the Easy E on her back and all that stuff. Fantastic, fam.
Thank you.
Why do you not feel that that stuff isn't appreciated? Like, I mean, because that's beastie. Like you literally got a woman with your a walking mirror, basically, like a living mirror.
I don't feel like it's not appreciated. I just feel like there's so much to me that nobody can just narrow it out to be like, this is the thing you're gonna blow off of. You know what I mean? I just feel like I'm just like a jack of all trades.
Right.
Like I can go paint this canvas and then I can paint this body. You feel me? Then I might be able to do this tattoo. Then I might do this card. Then I might go do this wall. You know what I mean? It's just so much to me that people not really grasping the concept of who I am. You know
Well, let me ask you this though, man. In terms of art, is art subjective?
What do you mean when you say that?
Is like, it seems like to me that you're saying that one of the things that, and even going back to Mrs. Marta Ferris, that she wanted you to take you had this talent. She wanted you to take your craft seriously. You did it, but you seem to be almost, and like this is what my show is about, a life behind the bars, that there's a way that artists in hip-hop culture get kind of encapsulated in these boxes, in these cages, because of the success. So you've had that success in Death Row, but it sounds like to me one of the things is like the quote-unquote high art world doesn't take you the way that your skills should allow you to be taken.
They're not really taking me serious, bro. You know what I mean?
And why do you think that is? Because
I think it's because where I come from and who I am. You know what I mean? A lot of people, they don't really want to accept me. You know what I mean? Because I come from Compton, California. But that's all good too, though. You know what I mean? They accept these rappers coming from Compton, California. But then when I stand up as a modern artist or artist, it's hard for me to be able to break that boundary. You know what I mean? To get outside that bubble. You know what I mean?
I got you.
And I'm not sitting up here. It's not no pity party. Woe is me. You know what I mean? I just do what I got to do, bro. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, eventually, it might not be this year. It might not be next year. I read somewhere somebody said it might take you 20 years to get that 10 years that you really needed. You know what I mean? And so I just look forward to that, and I just make my goals and I shoot my goals high.
Okay. But let me ask you this though, in terms of your art, man, because like I looked on the website and I saw that you had the stuff like for the ladies. Has it been one of those situations that you feel like the sisters have supported you more than sometimes?
Oh, no doubt. You know what I mean?
Talk about that. Let's chop it up. Let's chop it up.
I mean, no doubt. I mean, I get a lot of,
Talk more about that,
I
man.
feel like, back in the day,
because I see you got the Rose line.
Yeah, I had all of that. Like, I really started getting my fan base back, when I started messing around with Auntie Fee, rest in peace, that was my good friend. She blew up, off of internet success, cooking and cussing and all. That was her thing, you know what I mean? And me and her, before any of that happened, we used to always sit down and figure like, how we gonna blow? What we gonna do? And she happened to get her success off of YouTube, you feel me? And when she blew up, she just kind of kept me around, doing the stuff that I normally was known for, which was the airbrush and the painting and all of that. And I started designing her aprons, you know what I mean? So she started like taking my stuff. Steve Harvey was wearing my aprons. You know what I mean? She started like, really like letting people know who I was. And I started like getting my following back from that. So I had like people that were like, up onto me, you know what I mean? And like her fans, like to this day, you know what I mean? They have been like a real big support system for me, like buying my clothes. That's why I started like making a lot of female clothes.
Yeah, so
you know what I mean? Like, I just been doing that. You feel me? Because I feel like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You feel me? Either I can add to it, you know what I mean, or I could take away. But I'm always like looking forward, you know what I mean, to rapping with those fans and still being there.
But let me ask you this: why is that, fam? Why is it that do you feel like you said like the sisters always, and we always know this the case. Black women always holding us down. Sisters hold you down.
Same thing. Like I look like with the music. You
right,
feel me?
right.
Women, they will go out and buy that CD.
Right.
You feel me? They'll go out and buy that CD.
Right.
Guys, we gonna look for that bootleg.
Right.
Can I
high
build
quality,
yours?
high quality. That Maxell. You remember back in the day, the Maxell joint.
You know what I'm saying? Or we gonna
get
record
that
over
get
something
that black
to get
Maxell
that.
tape, baby. And make it happen.
The women, they love it. You know what I mean? They gonna go out here. They want to support. They want to do this. They want to do that. And I ain't shooting my brothers in the feet.
Yeah.
But that's how we are sometimes. We don't be looking out for the next man, you know what I'm saying? But the females will.
Yeah. Let me ask you this though, man, but I'm just talking about in terms of like what you do, in terms of your artistic process, do you think any of that is like, what was that like growing up? Because I can imagine like you can draw, like you can draw your ass off, right? And you've always had this ability and you developed it and you had people encourage you about like that. Do you ever feel like it was a situation that sometimes like you got seen as soft, or it was like something that like brothers couldn't understand in a way that sisters could understand? Like where does that come from though, man? Because like I'm one of those people that's like, if you see a young brother doing something out there trying to better themselves, we should jump on that. But you say like that hasn't been the case for you.
I mean, I never been really perceived as soft, you know what I mean? Because, I mean, after high school, I was straight in the streets, man. Like, even before, you know what I mean, I made it to Death Row, I was out there, like...
I got you.
Everything didn't really, like I said, I didn't graduate from high school because I was so into art, you know what I mean?
I got you. I got a GED too myself, bro.
Yeah,
so.
At that time, you know, when I was growing up on my street, my street that I grew up on, it was one of the biggest dope streets in Compton. You know what I mean? And I'm looking at all my boys that I grew up with. I'm looking at them having Cadillacs at 15 years old. You know, and I'm looking at them wearing gas. I'm looking at all kind of stuff. My dad, he going to the war. My mama, she working graveyard shifts, and I end up being out there on the streets doing that. You know what I mean? I don't never want to encourage nobody to get out here and do that. I had to learn the hard way. You know what I mean? But I mean, I went from selling crack, you know what I mean, to getting back into my career and going legit. You know what I mean?
No, for sure. We appreciate that, man. But let me ask you this, though, man. Schools today, you know, there's been the Save the Music initiative, Save the Arts initiative. What's your thoughts on how important it is, and why is it important for us to have those outlets in schools?
I feel like it's important because we don't know who the next big artist or big designer is going to be, you know what I mean, unless we educate our people, you know what I mean? Right. So I feel like those programs are big. Like even when I was in school, I had programs that I was going to after school to be able to learn how to silk screen, to do drafting, wood shop, and all of that, you know what I mean? Those are things that we definitely need in school, you know what I mean? Because it's so much stuff that somebody could be doing other than learning on the streets that if you open up those type of avenues, you could take that one person off the street, and you might, you don't know, we might be making the next millionaire by giving them that after school class.
Okay. Now, man, I know that this has been kind of something that you always get asked about. What's your creative process like when you were doing like the Death Row covers and when you would create that? So like, for example, the Daz album, which is one of my favorite albums in that era, and the cover was so dope. What was your inspiration for that cover? I
mean, it was the Marvin Gaye cover.
Okay.
And it was a lot of weed, man. It was a lot of weed. Like one thing that I really like to say is that, you know, Daz, I had fun working with Pop. You know what I mean? That's a legend. I'm not taking nothing from Daz. Daz is a legend too.
Right.
But Daz was more hands-on, was sitting down working with me on Retaliation, Revenge, and Get Back. You know what I mean? Yeah, Daz would come in. At that time, I was like, Suge was in jail. I was like a jack of all trades at Death Row too, because I wasn't not only doing the artwork. I mean, I was doing college radio promotions,
right.
club DJ promotions. I mean, I learned a lot of stuff. I was even a receptionist, you know what I'm saying?
So up the phones,
I was answering the phones and doing all of that. And Daz would come in and we would be working on Retaliation, Revenge, and Get Back, and I would literally be answering the phones and drawing at the same time working on this, you know what I mean? And he would come in, big bags of weed. He would go next door. At that time, we had a deli next door that sold like Moet, champagne, and all that. And Daz would be buying champagne, and it would be 9 o'clock in the morning. We ain't even had no breakfast, and we drinking champagne, smoking weed, answering the phones, and drawing. You know what I mean?
Getting it right.
Yeah, so we in there. So I really like, you know what I'm saying? I really look back at Daz, and I really, you know, thank him, like, you know, for that opportunity right there, because I mean, he really like, you know, helped me, you know, stay afloat even after the whole Death Row situation by giving me, you know, that cover to work on.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember that too, that was one of those albums and covers that came out like during
after the fact,
after the fact, and it was like in that real nebulous time where we was like, is Death Row still here?
It was like the
is
boat,
it not? Yeah.
The boat, the Titanic was still there,
right.
But it was a hole in it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And the water was filling, but we wasn't all the way under. But that was the time, like,
because I remember when
was
they
really
came
like
out.
Doing a thing. You know what I'm saying?
Let me ask you this though, because I remember it being, was it 2 covers for that? Because I remember the cover that you did and all that stuff, but I also remember seeing like there was like, maybe was it alternate covers or some of the inserts that y'all had with like Daz and all of the flannel. where he had on like the blue flannel joint.
Well, you know, he had photos too.
Okay,
so he
the
had
photos in
he
there.
had a photographer
Okay.
that took his inside pictures, but
Okay.
you know, the cover
But
that
the
was
cover,
all
that
me.
was all you.
Yeah, that was all me.
Okay, because I remember the photos. You know, when he had the creases on, he had the flannels on.
Yeah,
all that
he
different
had a
other stuff.
photographer come in and shoot all of that.
Well, let me ask you this though, man, because you were at Death Row early on and throughout the whole process, and you know, being that that's a legendary label, legendary on the culture. What was Pac's effect when he came to the role? What was that like? That expression says a lot. But how did it switch up? What was that like when Pac came to the role?
It was like I came in the same time. Like I came in. Matter of fact, I believe I came in February '95, right before All Eyes on Me dropped.
Okay.
And it was like Death Row was at a whole entirely different level from what I was seeing before I got there. I mean, like big parties, Beverly Hills. Like
Right.
to this day, I really can't party like that. You know what I'm saying? Because once you did a Death Row party back in the day like that, it's hard for you to be like, oh, I'm at this party right here because it ain't the same. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But
You
I
said
mean,
you got spoiled, Risky.
yeah, I'm really spoiled. Like when it comes to that industry shit, I'm really spoiled. Even though 20 years later, I'm really spoiled because it
I
was
done seen
like
too much.
I done saw too much, and then it was like, could you imagine like
How old were you then?
At that time, I was 23 at that time.
Okay.
So could you imagine like a youngster, this is like your first year on Death Row, you at it at the Snoop, no disrespect to Snoop took it to that level.
Right.
But when Pac came, it just like super elevated to another entirely different level. So could you imagine yourself at that age, 23, everything that's going on, you got all access, you know everybody, you can go anywhere you want to. You ain't got to worry about nobody saying you can't go back there, you can't go here, you can't go there.
Right.
You know all the guards, you know everybody, you just doing your thing. Can you imagine that? Like
I think I can.
yeah, I mean, it was just like, to me, it's like,
I wish I was there.
I mean, yeah, it's like,
I
what's
was
up,
there,
bro?
nigga.
It's like a time that, like, you know what I mean? It's like a time that I can never, like, ever forget. You know what I mean? I'll never be able to forget that or be able to, like, go past that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
It's not a day that I don't have to
But
sit
what
down
do
and
you
talk
think
about it.
like the effect was like in terms of like the effect, not just on yourself personally, but the effect that y'all had on the culture, just because like I feel like y'all changed the way album art was done. Y'all changed the way that people thought about like, you know, the inserts being important. Like
I
all
can't
of that
say
stuff.
I changed it. Suge changed it. Like I was just a vessel, bro. It was like, you know what I mean? He just gave me an opportunity. You know what I mean? He gave me the opportunity to just exploit my art across the world. Like, like it's people everywhere. Like I
That
might
know
not
that.
even step my foot in places that people have been buying artwork from me. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So that's a good thing. So I'm just appreciative that I was that person that he chose, because it could have been anybody, bro. It could have been anybody.
Okay. Couple of more questions before we wrap up here, fam. Where is your artistic project at today? Where do you see yourself going? What do you really want folks to know? What's your lane now? Where are you moving your stuff? I see your website. You're doing good. You say the sister's holding you down.
I
Where do you
mean,
want to go?
I mean, the first thing that I'm shooting for this year, I've been sitting real low key right now. The first thing I'm shooting for is having a show. You know
Okay.
what I mean? I never had an art show,
Okay.
and I've been talking about it for like the last 3 or 4 years that I plan on doing a show. So that's gonna be the first thing that I'm gonna do, is I'm gonna do an art show, just to make people aware of
Okay.
who I am. For the people that's sleeping on me, I'm about to wake them up real fast. You know what I mean? Because I'm gonna really take my time and put a lot of effort into what I'm gonna do.
Okay.
That's gonna be the first thing. The next thing I plan on working on is just trying to come to some type of resolution where I could sit down and talk with the Pac Foundation, to where I could try to work with them heavily too, because that's another thing that I feel like I really want to involve myself in, because I feel like yeah, Suge gave me the opportunity, but if it wasn't for Pac giving, you know, for trusting me, you know what I mean, giving me, you know, the insight, and for be able to work with me, you know what I mean, I would have never had those album covers, and that's those album covers that I did for Pac, that inserted for that Machiavelli album cover, that's how a lot of people know me by.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I would like to be able to do something with the foundation to be able to teach the youth too. You know what I mean? So that's what I would like to do. Secondly,
Okay.
and I mean thirdly, I would just like to just grow more as a person. You know what I mean? I would like to just. I would learn to be more. I want to learn to be more peaceful and more open to being able to create. You know what I mean these days, because then I was more inspired by Compton, because it was so much stuff that was coming from Compton and how the label came from Compton.
Right.
That inspired the way I did a lot of my artwork. But now I'm no longer inspired by that, because I've seen too many people die.
Right.
You know what I mean? In the process of getting to where I am at right now, that I'm like no longer inspired by that. I'm inspired by life, so I want to try to, like, you know, show that, put more emphasis on that.
Okay. Appreciate you, fam. And couple more questions, man. I don't want to put you on the spot though, but like your top 5 MCs, and it doesn't have to be in any order. Albums.
Let me.
I know you got to be political with it, but hey.
I mean, my top 5. I mean, my number 1 would be Pac.
Okay, which one?
What you mean, which one? It would be the Death Row Pac.
Okay, which?
You know what I
which
mean?
one?
If you're gonna ask me like what Pac, you know what I'm
No,
saying?
I'm just
I'm
saying,
gonna have
like,
to be like, you're gonna ask me which Pac.
Right, which one?
So I would
All
have
Eyes?
to. It would be 2 Pacs then. I would have to be number
Okay.
1 and number 2. Number 1 would
Okay.
be the Me Against the World Pac.
Okay.
That would be my first one. Number 2 would be the All Eyes on Me Pac.
Okay.
And I think number 3, since I did the album cover, that would have to be the
Seven Day.
Machiavelli 7-Day Theory Pac.
Okay.
And I mean, I still gotta like give it up to Biggie, because even before I even got to Death Row, I was really listening to Biggie. You know what I mean? Even when I was still at Death Row, I was still listening to Biggie. I never really did not like Biggie. It was only because of where I was at. You feel me? But I mean, I dug Biggie.
Do you want to tell a story I think I've heard you talk about before, like when Suge first went through your portfolio, he saw some pictures.
No, it was Pac.
Oh, it was a
Like,
Pac?
I try not to, but
Yeah.
the day I gave Pac my portfolio, I had a picture of Biggie in there, and Pac put his fingers together like a pistol, and he was like, "Boom, boom, what did you draw that for?" And I was like, "Bruh, I just be drawing." You know what I'm saying?
Right, you was
Because
like-
I wasn't gonna at that time. I wasn't gonna be like, "Look, Pac, I'm a fan of Big." I wasn't finna shoot myself in the foot.
Right,
You know
right. You
what
wasn't
I'm
gonna fuck
saying?
yourself in the
Yeah,
game.
I wasn't gonna do that. So I was just like, "Bro, I just be painting." You know what I'm saying? Because it was like
I
it was
be
a
drawing,
gang of
nigga.
people in there.
Right,
You know what I
right,
mean?
right,
So. That was like one of the craziest memories I had too, just to that situation right there. But I mean, I
Was
always
it? Was
listened
he?
to
So
Biggie.
he was heated that you had that shit in there.
I mean, he wasn't heated. It was just bang, bro. What you draw that for? You know what I'm saying? Why you got him up in here? I'm up in here, but he was in there too. So that was just a question I felt like he just asked me, because I mean that was something that was heavy on his mind and what he was dealing with at that time. So when he saw it, he acted on that.
Okay. You got 2 more.
2 more.
You got 2 more, baby.
I mean, it would be Nas.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I've always, like, dug, you know what I mean, his political views on the culture, you know what I mean, and on us as black people, you feel me?
Okay.
It would be Nas. And then I guess, what would that be, number 5 or number 6? That would be kind of like number 6 now, because I
Well,
done
I mean,
did
you got,
5.
I'm gonna give you some latitude, baby.
Okay, well, I mean, Drake, I like Drake. Ain't no getting past that. I mean, they can say whatever they want to say about that brother, but that brother got the music. I don't know. He inspired me when I listened to his music. Want to paint too. He cool.
Right. I got you.
I love some Drake. You know what I mean? And then who else? I can't really give it up for too many other people because everybody sound the same.
Okay. I got you. And so, man, is there anything? I know you said you wanted to do a show, and you're working on some of your projects. You want to do this mentorship stuff. So right now, as this is the end of the interview, would you like the camera is yours, the audience is yours. Any last words you want to say?
I mean, this is what I really want to say. I mean, like, no disrespect to none of my people out there banging or nothing like that, but I feel like it's too many people out here, you know what I mean, that has really like high. They have lots of numbers of people that are watching them, you know what I mean? Like where I come from, we want to make the money to be able to escape that, you know what I mean? And I look at these days, I look at there's so many artists that are out here promoting the gang violence, and you have so many young kids that are watching y'all that feel like it's cool to be gangbangers. You feel me?
Right.
It's like no disrespect to nobody. It's like I said, I just feel like when I was growing up, there were three crowds of people when I was going to school. You had the athletes, you had the square crowd, and then you had the gangsters. We don't even have none of those three types of people now because everybody wants to feel like they have to be involved with the gang action in some type of way. And I feel like if that's all we have to look forward to, and we don't have nobody out here trying to steer our youth in the right way, where the musicians gonna come from?
Right.
Where the doctors gonna come from? Where the lawyers that's gonna be able to get some of these people off their cases? Where are they all gonna come from? You know what I mean? I feel like we need to do better at educating our youth and teach them a better way. You know what I mean? Because when you look at the gang violence, like I escaped that. You know what I mean? I knock. If I had wood like right in front of me, I knock on it. I was able to get out of that just from selling drugs and all of that. But I'm like looking at our youth, like that's being involved with that. There's only two ways for us to go. I mean, for them to go, and that's definitely in jail. And I
Okay. So
I
it
don't
sounds like
seeing
you
these
need to
funerals.
start. We need to make a movement. Like, let's do that out there. It's the age of Instagram, Twitter, all that other shit. Hashtag L7s. We're gonna start the L7.
I mean,
movement.
man, bro, I'm thinking about, you know what I mean? I'm thinking
what I
about
mean?
coming out with
L7
my,
squares, right?
squares. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
like-
was just getting
right,
ready to
yeah.
speak on that because I'm thinking about coming
Yeah.
up with an online,
Yeah.
with my own line where I'm going to start doing stuff that have just a square on it with
Right,
a crown
that's
in the
right.
middle because I feel like it's cool. It's all right to be a square.
Hey, I'm an L7.
You feel me? It's all right. It's all right to be different. Like, you know what I mean? Because when I get ready to leave this earth, knock on wood, you know what I mean? I don't want it to be for no stupid shit.
Right,
You know
that
what I
dumb
mean?
shit.
For no color that I'm not going to never own, no block that I'm not going to ever probably own a house on. You know what I mean? Or just the average everyday shit we see every day. People dying over this shit, man.
Over
Like
that.
it gotta we gotta really stand up for our youth.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm saying, bro.
For sure, man. Before I get you to get the website, man, but let me ask you this though, like, in terms of that, why can't people get off that dumb shit though?
I don't know, bro. I look at people these days, you know what I'm saying, that have mega amounts of dollars, you feel me? And they still want to be involved. Like,
Yeah.
what for? Like,
Yeah, like
you know what
it-
I'm saying? Like, take some of those dollars instead of trying to promote the death and the violence. Take some of those dollars and get some of these people out here that's on the streets that don't have no other way out. Take some of them dollars and show them another way out with that. You know what I mean? Like, let them be able to escape that. You
Yeah.
feel me? Because it ain't where I come from. It ain't hardly no escape routes for these youngsters. Other than that, you know what I mean?
So
Like,
you
put
heard it
something out
first here. The L7 movement. We're gonna start it here tonight. L7 with a crown. I like that. You gonna draw it up, man. You gonna have the
I'm
square with the crown.
It's all right to be a square.
It's all right to be a
It's all
square.
right to be a square.
Tell folks your website. Tell them where they can look at some of your artwork, where we can pick some of the stuff up at.
I mean, you could definitely find me on Instagram. You know, my name is spelled differently. I don't like when people spell my name R-I-S-K-Y because that's so common that I spell my name R-I-S-K-I-E. So you can look me up on Instagram at Risky Forever, and that's R-I-S-K-I-E F-O-R-E-V-E-R. You can find me at Twitter under the same thing, at Risky Forever. You can find me at, you know what I mean, on my website, www.riskyforever.com. You can look me up there.
All right, appreciate y'all as always. Risky, man, thanks for coming through, fam.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
having
dropping
me. I
that knowledge.
appreciate it.
Second Street, always.